Hey folks, whenever I'm commissioned to build someone a budget gaming PC, there's a few items that I've generally already got in stock, as my kinda go-to options. On hand, I've always a few 1 or 2 TB hard disk drives, along with a few 2.5-inch SSDs of varying capacities. And of course 120mm fans, will always need them. On top of that though, tower coolers, well, they're something that I often have a little stock of. As, especially on Intel builds anyway, it's always something that I'm asked to upgrade right off the bat. And with that said, there's always a few go-to options that I have at hand. I keep some 92mm coolers for the smaller builds, but when it comes to suggesting something which moves everything up a tier to include a 120mm fan arrangement and addressable RGB, then it's the Gamemax GAMMA 500, which is often my go-to option, falling into that magical £25 to £30 price category. Now though, Gamemax has released a new cooler in the form of the GAMMA 600, which aims to step things up a level further, coming in at around £45 and offering an even more robust cooling solution. So today we're going to take a look at it and see exactly what it brings to the table. Now, over the last year or so, Gamemax have been gradually upping their game when it comes to the unboxing experience, with a lot of their products now coming really nicely packaged. It's a small thing, but opening the box and seeing that nice big cooler stare right back at you, right off the bat, nicely secure in its foam insert, is quite a nice feeling. Taking everything out and the cooler looks fantastic. It's a complete unit with both 120mm fans and all the ARGB elements pre-installed. On the topic of the fans, it's something interesting we've got here. Instead of the usual approach which you'll see 2 identical fans being used, the front and rear fans spin in different directions, allowing Gamemax to show what we would call the front face of the fan on the rear side. This just means that there's no nasty plastic housing on show, while still allowing perfectly straight airflow through the fin stack towards the rear of the case. So I've got to give them huge kudos right off the bat, as it's a step that hardly any coolers take these days. A PWM fan splitter cable is also included, again a nice to have which helps tidy things up, and something not every cooler is going to include. The cooler itself uses 6 6mm nickel plated direct contact copper heat pipes, meaning ample coverage for your CPU, and there's also a nice aluminium heat spreader on top of it, so the cooling arrangement and fin stack are going to have no problem at all drawing heat away from even the most power hungry and hot CPU. And the enclosed nature of those 2 big fans means that all the air that the fans draw in is going to be used to directly cool those heat pipes and fin stack. So far, I must say I'm pretty impressed. We're actually getting some innovation here, and again at 45 quid, it's a case of so far so good. Now, as we all know, lighting is a massive part of enthusiast PCs these days, and the Gamma 600 excels here too. We get the Gamemax addressable RGB logo up top, which looks clean on the black housing, and both fans are also 5V ARGB, which we can connect to a single header via an included splitter cable, which again is a nice feature to have. The lighting on the unit looks great, with clear and clean transitions, which can be controlled by your motherboard software directly, or, and this is a key point for anyone building on an older platform, with the included mini RGB controller, which is powered by Molex and can be used if your platform doesn't support a 5V ARGB header. It's a great inclusion and just another little quality of life addition on top of the splitter cables, which means that anyone can get this up and running in their system with full functionality with just one PWM header and either one Molex connector or one 5V ARGB header on their motherboard. Now, I love it when a product tries to make things easy on the end user, which is a nice segue into the only blotch on an otherwise perfect start for the Gamma 600. Now, this is going to be a point which, depending on how you build a PC and even what components you're using, it might not be an issue at all. But all I can say is it can be a little bit tight depending on the case and motherboard you use. Now, like many other coolers out there, the Gamma 600 uses its own mounting system. So if you're on an AM4 platform and perhaps hoping to use the pre-installed standard AMD mounting bracket on your motherboard, then you're out of luck. If you're on an Intel board, then you are going to be out of luck anyway, and you're already going to be familiar with the type of system that this uses. Now ideally the motherboard is going to be out of the case to allow you to attach the cooler, and like I said, for the majority of builders that's going to be the norm anyways, so it's not really a downside or an issue. But if you're like me and you appreciate those coolers that do allow for a quick swap over in situ, then it's just something to bear in mind. So with it set up in a system, how does it perform? Well, on the surface you might think that the Gamma 600 is going to end up in that grey zone. You know, the zone where it's more expensive than the basic tower coolers, but it's not much less than an entry level AIO. And price wise this is absolutely correct. If we take the Gamma 500 at 30 quid, and say the Ice Chill AIO which I reviewed last year, that came in at 60 quid, then at £45 it's slap bang in the middle. But price isn't the only factor at play here. While the Gamma 500 would be at its limit if I really pushed my Ryzen 9 3900 XT, the Gamma 600 didn't break a sweat, remaining fairly cool and not even spinning its fans at full pelt. So it should come as no surprise then that when I tested it on my Ryzen 7 5800X, and especially on the Ryzen 5 3600, it performed amazingly well while remaining really quiet. Since I heartily recommend both the Gamma 500 for the low end, and I've already waxed lyrical in videos about the Ice Chill 240, and I still use that in my main PC to this day, I was a bit concerned when initially looking at the Gamma 600 that it would fall into that no man's land. The truth is though, that in comparison to its peers, it's a cooler which often overperforms compared to its price. Let me break it down like this. Price wise, as we've discussed, it falls right between the budget tower cooler and the Ice Chill AIO. So if we map the other criteria that people look for in a cooler and then map where the Gamma 600 lands, we can see that mostly performance wise it's much closer to a 240mm AIO than it is a basic tower cooler. Feature wise, again, with the quality of life additions, RGB mini hub, specialised fans, wind tunnel-esque housing, on top of being a nice 6 heat pipe design with additional heatsinks, it's clear that it surpasses the Gamma 500 by a considerable amount. Acoustically, again, it scores well relative to the performance on offer, and if we manually slow the fans down so that the thermal performance matches that of the Gamma 500, it's actually quieter, no doubt helped by that enclosed design too. Aesthetically, well, this is the final area and it's obviously a subjective one, but I will say that for me, I think the cooler looks pretty amazing. It's certainly a step above a basic tower cooler, and when the RGB is in full flow, I think it looks as slick as my Ice Chill 240 AIO. So with a clear trend towards overachieving compared to its middle of the range price, I think it's an easy cooler to recommend in the end. And at £45, it's not going to break the bank, and it is certainly one of the more unique looking coolers on the market at the moment. But with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. I'll certainly be adding a few of these coolers to my stock for future builds, but let me know if you would have one, and what do you think of that wind tunnel design and the reverse fan arrangement? Is that something that you look for? Be sure and get subscribed, as I'll be releasing a full build video featuring this Gamma 600 soon, and I think that it looks very, very slick in that build. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comment section down below, and in the next video.